Imagine this, you're me, a guy suddenly caught in a web of secrets so thick you could cut it with a clever remark. There I was, an accidental master of espionage without ever having taken a single spy class. My life turned into a suspenseful comedy, where each day was another episode starring me as the unlikely hero. Picture MacGyver, but with more Wi-Fi issues and less hair. Armed only with my wit and a collection of gadgets too smart for their own good, I navigated a maze of secrets. Every beep from a device wasn't just a notification, it was the sound of the next plot twist. I wasn't just spying, I was tuning into the live broadcast of my own life, which had turned into a comedy where the laugh track was stuck on suspense. There I was, trying to piece clues together with the agility of a cat on a hot tin roof. You'd find yourself chuckling as I improvised, setting up cameras like I was staging a failed YouTube prank. So, buckle up. If my life were a movie, you'd be on the edge of your seat 1 minute and slapping your knee the next. Curtain up, spotlight on, and let the chaos begin. It was late in the week when I discovered my world was not as I thought. I came home early from work. Marge, my wife, was upstairs. I thought about going up to greet her. As I walked down the hall, I heard her on the phone. When I got closer, I caught the end of the conversation. Yes, love. Today was a good day. I enjoyed it. Since when did she enjoy work? The door to our room was slightly ajar, so I peeked inside. She was taking off her clothes while still on the phone. She removed her skirt and laid it on the bed. She was wearing black lace underwear I had never seen before. I was about to step in when she said, "I have to go, he might come home. I need to shower first." I watched as she put her phone to charge and took off her blouse. She was wearing a matching black lace bra. Turning her back to me, she slipped off her underwear and tossed them aside. Then, she unclasped her bra as she headed to the shower. She paused in front of a mirror, and from where I stood, I could see her reflection. What I saw made me freeze. I felt sick. In the mirror, her left breast had a hickey. My wife had a mark, and it wasn't from me. She noticed it too, touching the spot. "Oh no," she muttered, "I have to hide this." She went to the shower as I stood outside our room, silently crying. I'm David Atkinson. Marge has been my wife for 23 years. We have 2 children, Julia, 19, and Tom, 18. Marge works part-time at the local Air National Guard base. I'm a chemical engineer. Until a few minutes ago, I thought we had a great life together. Now, it seemed my wife needed someone else to be happy. Once I calmed down, I entered our bedroom and tried to check her phone to see the last call she received. To my surprise, it had a password. We had never used passwords before and had always been open about using each other's phones. I realized it had been months since I had used her phone. It just hadn't come up. I picked up her blouse and smelled it. There was a strange aftershave scent I didn't recognize. I went to the laundry basket and pulled out her underwear and bra. They were as expected, no obvious signs of infidelity. I thought for a moment, then grabbed the digital video camera from the kitchen, placing it in a Ziploc bag. Returning to the bedroom, I put the underwear in the bag and tucked it in my pocket, making a mental note to get a test kit to check for evidence and send it to my lab. I set up the camera on my dresser, pointing at the mirror, turned it on to record, and hid it behind one of my ties. It was well concealed. As I went back downstairs, I noticed her laptop was open. I tried to check her emails but found it also had a password, another clue. I left the room, wanting to talk to her but too upset to confront her without proof. She could easily deny it, and I wanted to find out who the other man was to make him pay. I called her phone, knowing she was still in the shower, and told her I was held up at work and would have dinner later. After hiding her underwear in the garage, I went to the nearest bar to think and process everything. It was an old, quiet bar next to a rundown motel, decent food, cheap drinks, and a place to be alone. As I entered, I saw a new girl working the bar. Great, I thought, I hope she knows how to mix a gin and tonic. And she did. Her name was Mary. It was her first day, and I enjoyed chatting with her. She was a mother who had once been married and was trying to move forward. I got home around 11 p.m. The house was silent. Everyone was asleep. I went to our room to change, and as I put on my robe, Marge stirred. "You're late tonight," she said. "Sorry for waking you," I replied. "I had a long day. I'll make it up to you if you missed me." She yawned. "I'm too tired now. Maybe in a day or two." "It's a date," I said. "Good night." "Good night," she murmured. I grabbed the recorder and connected it to my computer. Reviewing the footage, I realized we had gone from being intimate frequently to just once a week. And in the past month, only on Saturdays. I skipped forward to when she came out of the bathroom. She examined herself in the mirror and touched the mark again. Then, she chose pajamas, odd, as she usually slept without any. I saved the footage, cleaned up the camera, and hit it again. On my way to bed, I turned up the heat. Let's see if she likes her pajamas now, I thought. Marge was already asleep, or pretending to be, when I climbed into bed. Thursday morning, I woke up early. I was too angry to stay, needing time to calm down and think. I called work to say I'd be late, then phoned George, knowing he'd know what to do. We'd been friends for a long time. A few years ago, George discovered his wife was unfaithful, and they separated. We spent a lot of time together back then, talking about everything. Now, George had risen through the ranks in the Air National Guard and was in charge of the base's security. After his separation, he threw himself into his work and quickly climbed the ladder. His latest position made him head of base security. When I called, he answered quickly. "How are you?" he asked. "Not great," I said. "I think Marge is seeing someone else." "Oh man, David, that's tough," he said. "I'll help however I can. Want to come over now?" "Yes," I replied. Then he added softly, "I hope you're wrong, but you're usually right. Let's find out." I went to his house, and we sat down to talk. After an hour, we had a plan. George gave me 5 small audio recorders like the ones he'd used before. I went home, and Marge's car wasn't there. I placed 4 recorders in the house and kept one for her car. The house felt colder than before, maybe Marge had been warm last night. I checked her closet and found new clothes I hadn't seen before, older pieces she might have bought and then felt too shy to wear. At the back of a drawer, I found new lingerie. Some pieces were torn as if they had been ripped off. It made me feel awful. I stared at them for a long time before going to work. At 3 p.m., I called Marge's cell and left a message, saying I was held up at work and wouldn't be home until late. When I finally got home that night, I put the last recorder in her car and went to bed. I stayed awake listening for voices, but nothing interesting came up. Saturday morning, as usual, I made breakfast for the kids so Marge could sleep in. Sunday would be my turn to sleep late. After the kids went to watch TV, I cleaned up the kitchen and warmed Marge's breakfast in the microwave. I left a note by the microwave saying I was outside and started working in the yard. A couple of hours later, Marge came out, complaining that her laptop wasn't connecting to the Wi-Fi. We went inside. I tried mine, pretending it was fine, and told her we should check hers. She seemed nervous and stayed close to her laptop and me. I made some fake tech moves until she got bored and left. Each time she walked away, I slipped a USB drive into her laptop, setting up a spy program. The next time she left, I programmed it to log every keystroke, take a screenshot every 30 seconds, track all the websites she visited, and capture all emails, including deleted and sent ones. When she left again, I fixed the Wi-Fi from my laptop, checked that it was online again, and showed her. I told her the hard drive needed cleaning and showed her a tool, telling her to press this button when done for the day so it could run overnight. That way, my spy tool would also send me all the data it captured. She wrapped her arms around my neck, kissed me, and with a wink, said, "Thanks, big guy. How can I repay you?" I smiled, patted her back gently, and said, "How about washing my car?" She looked like she was expecting something more. I kissed her cheek and joked, "Just kidding. I'm heading back to work." She looked confused as I went to mow the lawn. I knew I was being paranoid, but I couldn't let her think I was onto her without solid proof. I had to act normal for now. So, I decided to work hard that day and be too tired for anything that night. We watched movies with the kids later, and Marge snuggled up next to me. It felt nice. She got a little playful a couple of times during the movies. When the second movie was almost over, I used the opportunity to grab a drink and took one of Marge's Annex tablets, thinking it would knock me out in about 45 minutes. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Marge had to wake me up. I told her I was exhausted from working all day and went to bed. Marge seemed disappointed, especially when the kids wanted her to stay for another movie. I fell asleep without knowing when she joined me. Sunday is my day to sleep in, but I woke up at 5 a.m. I didn't want to be there when Marge got up, avoiding any early morning surprises. It was time to check her things. I turned off her alarm when I left and turned on my computer. I realized that skipping intimacy would probably make her suspicious, so I started the keylogging program and put a password on my computer. I found about 500 emails in a hidden folder and began going through them. The keylogger showed the oldest messages first. I was seeing emails from 6 months ago. Among them, I found 2 from someone named Perez. He had his own name on the web, but the chats were about work. Maybe they worked together, or maybe this was the guy. I found an email sent 4 months ago titled, "Hey, hot stuff." I read it. It wasn't too explicit, but it was clear this man was trying to charm her. I quickly searched his name online and found no website. I sorted the emails by date and found 6 from Will, sent yesterday. It was no surprise that Marge clung to her laptop, afraid I'd open her emails. I opened the most recent one and read it while my world fell apart again. It started at the end, where she was angry at him for leaving marks and how hard it was to hide them from me. His reply was dismissive, "Tough luck, get over it, and forget your husband." Her angry response came 14 minutes later. One part was revealing. She said, "I know you don't love your wife, but I love my husband. I don't want to hurt him or damage our marriage. It's already bad enough that I haven't been close to him lately. Now, with your marks, I can't even let him see me undressed. I won't see you this Wednesday." Interesting, but it changed nothing. The next 2 emails were him apologizing, saying he'd be gentler, and offering a trip somewhere sunny if she could sneak away. He told her he loved her. Her last reply said she was glad he understood her point but would only go on a trip with her husband and skip their Wednesday meeting. She thought the marks would take a week to fade and planned to work on mending things with me. Other emails filled in more details. They'd been together for 2 months, meeting at a local hotel where his company had a room for visiting salespeople. One email even gave her directions there, saying the company had room 187 for the past 2 years. It was the motel across from the bar I had visited. Then a new email from him appeared. It was a response to one she sent the night before, which made me pause. She had messaged him saying she needed to see him that week and could meet on Wednesday at 1 p.m., asking him to be gentle this time. His reply was filled with sweet talk, praising her and saying he'd make it perfect for her. Right then, I knew they both would have to face what they'd done. I needed to plan and would need George's help. I forwarded the emails that might be useful to George and started making breakfast. Marge came downstairs around 9:30 and was happy I'd let her sleep in. I told her it was fine since I'd gone to bed early. She hugged me and said, "Don't work too hard today. I need you tonight." I ignored the last part and told her I just had a bit more work to finish. As I walked away, I saw her look worried. She tried to hide it when she noticed me watching. I told her to call if she needed anything. She said, weakly, "Okay." I was cleaning the garage when George called. He first asked if we could talk. I stepped outside and said yes. He told me he'd read the emails and felt bad for me. I told him that I felt horrible, but at least now he knew. "You know, but you still don't have solid proof," he said. I thought I might try to get photos of her at the motel. "We can do much more if you want. But you can't use that in court," he added. "Tell me more." He mentioned that he had investigated shady activities at that motel before. The owner was a decent man who didn't tolerate bad people or drug addicts there. "I'll call tomorrow and get the key to that room," he said. "It's for the job I'm working on now. We need to know when Perez isn't there so we can install hidden cameras. That's how I caught my ex," he told me. "Yes, I want that," I said firmly. "To catch her and catch him too. Can you investigate him?" "I'll do it first thing Monday," he replied. We talked a bit more. George explained that the equipment starts with sound and activates with motion, sending the information to a receiver within a 30-meter range. He planned to hide the receiver in a utility room to collect the data. I only needed to drive close to the motel and turn on the receiver from my car. The first receiver would also send the information whenever commanded, wiping its memory after. Getting a full day's video could take up to 24 hours. The rest of Sunday passed by uneventfully. I considered going to bed 10 minutes after lying down but decided not to sleep that night. When she came to bed, I pretended to be asleep. She checked once, then turned over and fell asleep. On Monday, I woke up early and left before anyone else. I called my work and said I wouldn't be coming in that day. I drove to George's house, and he told me he had spoken with the motel manager and obtained some information. It turned out our man was seeing at least 3 different women at his hideout. He must think he's clever, using a room full-time, but he's foolish to use the same place, George noted. The manager mentioned Perez was a nuisance to the staff and usually showed up a few times a week but rarely before 11 a.m., "That's fine. Let's go," George said. We loaded the equipment into George's van and arrived at the motel within 10 minutes. George knocked on the manager's office door and introduced me as someone assisting him with a job. The manager, Kevin, agreed to let me be around but emphasized that he didn't want any trouble on the property. He handed George the key to the room and showed us where it was on the map. A utility room was nearby, about 15 meters away. George asked for the key to that room as well, and Kevin made one immediately. Kevin called Perez's room to check if he was there, no response. "We're good," Kevin said. We drove the van close to the room. George knocked a few times, then used the key to enter. The room was empty. I froze for a second, thinking about my wife with another man in that bed, but then I got to work. Within 2 hours, we had everything set up and confirmed it was working. Just as we were about to leave, I noticed a spot for a laptop on the table. "George, look. He keeps his laptop here. If I can access it when he's gone, I can install a tracker," I said, almost too loudly. "He might step out when he goes to eat," George said. "I'll watch this place all day if I have to," I replied. "First, I want to track his car so we won't get caught off guard," he said. "Don't rush." "Understood. We can't mess this up. Let's go now. How about that spot across the parking lot for lunch? Their food is good, and they have a new bartender. She's nice and easy to talk to," George suggested. "I'm in." "I'm starving," I replied. The bar was empty when we entered. I walked in first. Mary, the bartender, saw me, smiled widely, and waved. George came in behind me, and Mary looked surprised, dropping her towel. She stopped cleaning and walked straight over, ignoring me and hugging George tightly. "George, it's so good to see you," she said. He hugged her back. "Mary, I've been thinking about you." "It's good to see you," he replied. She took a step back but still held on to him, not entirely steady yet. "I'm better now," she said, "but it's been a while." From afar, I tried to introduce George, but both laughed. Mary let go of George, took my hand, and said, "I liked you from the first time we met. Knowing you're George's friend means a lot." I smiled. "He can be a handful, but it's all right," I replied. She smiled back. "George and I have been friends for a while, but I've never found him to be a handful. It must be a guy thing." Even while serving drinks to others, Mary kept coming back to chat with us. She shared that she was working hard to save for nursing school and had 5 more months to go. Around 2 p.m., George and I were the only ones left. I mentioned how quiet it was, and Mary said it was always like that. She rarely got tips, which made things difficult, but she used the time to study. Then, with a smile, she said, "What I'm about to tell you, I understand if you don't want to hear it, but I won't hide who I am. I'd rather you hear it from me." She reached out for George's hand, grabbed it tightly, and said, "Let me tell you how I met George. He caught me, dragged me into a dirty cell in this cold, dark place. I broke down when I saw the cell, but he didn't care. He just pushed me inside and started to close the door. Then, he stopped, looked at me crying, and yelled at me, telling me how I was ruining my life and acting foolishly. But then I realized he wasn't yelling that I was useless. He was telling me I was hurting myself. No one had ever said that to me before, but I heard it then. I collapsed onto that filthy, horrible cot and cried my heart out. George sat beside me and asked one word, 'Why?' Just that. For the first and last time in my life, I told someone everything, crying uncontrollably. I don't know how long it took, but George must have sat there for hours. When I finished, he looked at me for a long time, then stood up, touched my shoulder gently, and locked the cell. He left me there for 14 hours. I saw no one, heard nothing. I was cold and hungry, coming down from a high. Finally, he came back and said it was time to see the judge. Normally, they let you clean up and put on a new jail suit before court. Not me. He made me go as I was. The defense said nothing. The judge was ready to send me to prison when George stood up and asked to speak. I'll never forget what he said or how he looked in his dress uniform. I remember every word to this day, but the important part is that he told the judge sending me to prison wasn't right. He wanted me to be sent to rehab. The judge and prosecutor were shocked. I was in deep trouble, hooked on bad things, caught doing bad things. But George spoke up. Even though it was hard, he was on my side. The judge thought about it and gave me a 90-day rehab sentence, with a 4-year probation if I failed. I tried. Looking at George, she said, "Since George caught me, I've stayed away from the bad stuff." Looking at both of us, she continued in a low voice, "George, David, I don't work the streets anymore, but I still do what I can to save for nursing school and take care of my son. If you both don't want to talk to me after this, I understand. I'm sorry, George." Suddenly, we were embracing her from both sides. "As long as you keep fighting, I'll be here for you," George said. "And you'll make it." "I know it," I added. "Mary, I'm glad we met. I'm happy to call you a friend." Tears streamed down her face as she hugged us back in the quiet corner of the bar. On Monday evening, Marge arrived at 5:30 with Chinese takeout. She tried to kiss me, but I only took the bags and said, "Great, we're all hungry." When I looked back, she seemed worried. "Why don't you change, and I'll set everything up?" I suggested. She paled as I set the table. She tried to say something but stayed silent. I was still angry over her lie the night before. Dinner was quiet, and the kids noticed but said nothing. Marge barely ate, but I kept my emotions in check. I didn't want to blow everything before I had proof. I shook my head and said, "Sorry, guys. I brought work issues home. Let's try again." How was everyone's day? We talked during dinner, trying to keep it normal. Later, I went into our room. It felt warm, around 77 degrees Fahrenheit. I got ready for bed and turned my back to her. She said softly, "Good night, honey." Without turning, I asked, "Why are you wearing that thick shirt?" "It's hot in here." She hesitated and said, "I'm just cold, that's all." I pressed a little more, turned toward her, and hugged her. She hugged me back, but she was sweaty. "Are you feeling sick?" I asked, concerned. "I don't think so," she replied. "I've just been cold at night." I pulled her closer. "I know ways to warm you up," I said. She tensed up. "David, I'm sorry. I'm too tired." I turned away. "It's okay, Marge." She leaned over and said, "I'm just too tired tonight." "But how about Wednesday?" "It'll be a light day for me. I'll make it up to you then." I mumbled a response. The night before in Perez's car, I got the tracking location. I saw that Perez was on the other side of town. It was time to check the voice recorder in the room. I told my office I'd be back in a few hours and headed home. That Monday morning, Marge had talked to her best friend, Ashley, and immediately told her she'd had an amazing weekend. Ashley was excited. "Did you see Will this weekend?" she asked. I wondered if her husband Mike knew anything and was hiding it from me, that jerk. No, I didn't want to be with David on Sunday night, but it didn't happen. I was planning to be with him Saturday night, like we usually do, but he worked all day and was too exhausted, Marge admitted. Ashley asked, "Is David better in bed than Will?" "Yes, being with David is always better," Marge admitted. "Then why are you with Will?" Ashley asked, sounding amused. "It's different," Marge replied. "David loves me, and I feel so safe with him. Will is more straightforward, it feels good, but I never want David to treat me that way. They're both good, I know it sounds strange." "It doesn't sound strange to me, friend," Ashley said, laughing. "It's the excitement, the heat of the moment, letting yourself go for someone special. That's why I started seeing Brian last year." Marge laughed too. "Yeah, that's why you stopped seeing him, right? His size made you walk funny." "God, I was always sore after being with him," Ashley said. "He's gentle, but he's big. It's fun to tease him, just watching him and saying, 'Do it.'" She added, "Hey, next month, when Mike's away for a few days, I might let Brian have me on the first day. I'll be sore for days, but I should be fine by the time Mike gets back." "Wow, I thought you were done with him," Marge responded. "I was, since last year. I thought Mike was suspicious, but Brian and I kept in touch. With Mike gone for a few days, I thought I'd treat myself." "You have to tell me everything," Marge said. "Only if you tell me how your Wednesday with Will and David goes, all the spicy details," Ashley replied. "Deal," Marge agreed. Then Ashley asked, "How's your bruise?" "It's fading, but I can't let David see it for a few more days. I've been changing in the bathroom and wearing thick shirts at night." "He hasn't noticed," Marge said. "Be careful," Ashley warned. "Has he said anything about not having sex?" "No, but I have to manage that," Marge replied, laughing. "I've never had to do this before, but I want to be with David on Wednesday night. I've never been with two men in one day before. I have, a couple of times. It's really thrilling. Just make sure to use a cleansing kit before seeing David. Clean thoroughly," Ashley advised. Marge said she would, and they ended their call. She couldn't believe how bold she and Ashley had become. Should she tell Mike and ruin his life? That would be wrong. Then she wondered if he'd be angry for not knowing and decided she'd give him the recording after confronting Perez. The next call was from Ashley again that morning. Their conversation felt different from Monday's. Marge called and said, "Hi, Ashley." Ashley noticed Marge's mood and asked, "What's wrong?" David noticed I was wearing thick pajamas and closing the door to change. He asked me why. I told him I was cold, but Ashley, it was so hot that I sweated all night in those pajamas. I don't think he believed me, but he didn't say more. Then he wanted to get close, but I couldn't let him see the bruise. I had unplugged the nightlight on Sunday, but David plugged it back in. So, I said no again, and he got frustrated. I tried to make it up by saying we could be together this Wednesday, but he didn't seem to care. We just lay there, distant. The worst part is, I couldn't stop thinking about being with Will, not David, Marge confessed. I didn't need to hear more. I saved the file. I had to find out how to detect signs of other men, so I ordered a testing kit to my office. Later, I went to the motel and saw Perez's car parked there during lunch. I went to the bar. Mary wasn't working, but through the window, I saw Perez sitting at a table, looking at the menu. It felt like the right time, so I approached the motel room door and knocked. No response. I used my key to enter. This time, I ignored the bed and went straight to the other room. His laptop was open, showing a kickboxing page. I plugged in my USB drive, set up a keylogger, and made sure to track every keystroke and accounting data. If he was doing anything wrong, I'd catch him. I also activated remote desktop access and set up an account using his domain name. Once I hid the icons and start menu, I restored the kickboxing page and left quickly, returning to the office. I worked for a few hours, then came home feeling good. I was all smiles and helped the kids. Marge looked worried at first but relaxed when she saw me acting normal. Around 10 p.m., she said it was time for bed. I told her I had to finish some work and would join her later. Great. See you in the morning, she said. Yeah, great, I thought. Sleep well for your lover tomorrow. I had a lot of data to go through, recordings, computer files from Will and Marge, and phone records. I placed the recorder back in Marge's car after collecting the data. When I slipped into bed, I stayed as far from her as possible, trying to sleep while thinking about what would happen tomorrow. Marge got up before me the next morning, which was fine by me. My stomach was in knots because I knew she'd be unfaithful again that day, and I'd have to watch the video of her with another man. When I went to the kitchen, she had almost finished making breakfast, already dressed for work. Just in time, darling, and good morning, she said. I grunted and reached for the coffee. After a few sips, I looked at her and saw confusion on her face. Sorry, I'm still half asleep, I said. It's okay. You're just not yourself in the mornings, she replied. Now you know how I feel most days. I didn't respond. I just sat and drank. The kids came in, and she started serving breakfast. I usually helped her, but not today. I avoided looking at her but noticed from the corner of my eye that she kept stealing glances at me. Finally, she stopped and stared intently. Is something wrong, David? She asked softly as I was about to leave. I looked at her blankly and said, not that I know of. Then, I hugged her tightly with affection. She melted into my embrace, relieved. I'm glad. I was worried, she said. I love you and can't imagine life without you. There's no one else I want, I added, pausing. I hope you feel the same way. She stiffened, let out a quiet sob, hugged me tighter, and said, Of course I do. Then she whispered, and I plan to make you very happy tonight. I pulled away abruptly and left without looking back. I drove to the motel and began downloading data, waiting for Marge to leave for work. I got home just after 9 a.m. and spent all my time in the parking lot, lost in thought about how to handle the day, how I was supposed to act normal around her, what I was going to do. How could I force myself to watch the video of her with another man? It took some time to retrieve the data from the listening devices. I wandered aimlessly around the house while the transfer completed. I just couldn't picture myself talking to Marge that evening, let alone sharing a bed with her. I started reviewing Perez's emails. After a few hours, I found some basic information. He managed 3 companies that bought cheap goods and sold them to the local military base, big companies, and the government. It turned out he was also seeing 5 other women besides my wife. The cunning man had many emails about product quality and details. I saved a few emails to review later. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I then copied 3 kickboxing-related company files and used a keylogging program to find his usernames and passwords. I didn't get much from that either, I'm no finance expert. I noticed from his expenses that he had 6 company credit cards, with card numbers noted in his memos. Listening to his phone conversations was tedious, but ultimately worthwhile. I began to connect the dots between some emails and his calls. One call was from someone in a busy shipping department, mentioning an issue with a recent order due to repeated serial numbers. Worse, all new orders needed unique serial numbers. Perez was clearly angry about this and made it known. The person on the other end mentioned that their new tracking software would catch all sorts of issues and that they needed to be cautious. After hanging up, Perez went online and ordered 2 high-end printers and supplies. Then he got a call from a supplier named Willie Boy. This guy talked in circles but eventually mentioned that getting approval to sell took a long time. He offered to help. The head of purchasing at the base listens to his assistant. I can get that assistant on your side, but it'll cost $5,000 in cash. You'll be able to sell $100,000 worth of goods to the base and even raise your prices a bit. It'll be cheaper next time. Perez sounded less irritated. All right. How do I get you the money? Perez asked. I'll tell you when the time's right. In 2 days, your offer will be selected. Thanks. I'll call you soon, the seller replied. Perez then received a call from someone in the base's purchasing department, where Marge worked. This person told Perez the prices other vendors were offering for some contracts. He got 4 more important calls, one of which was from my wife, the same call I'd heard on the car recorder. It was time to organize things. I created folders on my USB drive for videos, audio recordings, information, and other files, then made a copy. It was time to call George. He sympathized with me for a moment, but I told him I needed his professional help, and he listened intently. After explaining everything, he said, "Great. I can't use what you found in court, but it helps with what we're already investigating. We've been watching the shipping and receiving department for a while. Sometimes, entire shipments go missing, and the logs show no issues. I needed to check the warehouses because some items had duplicate serial numbers, and that's not okay. I told him we needed to do this quickly and mentioned that I had to leave the house before Marge came back. Can we meet later at your place? He suggested. No, better to meet at my apartment at 3 p.m., I replied. I didn't want others finding out just yet. I'll cook, and we can have a drink. You won't be driving, so you can drink, George said firmly. I agreed, and we ended the call. That was my plan, spend the afternoon with George, get drunk, and say that a hangover kept me distant from her. My heart sank. It was nearly 1 p.m., and she would soon meet him. I tried calling Marge, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe she didn't want to talk. I left a message saying I'd be with George and would be home late. I reviewed the video files from Monday onward. What I first saw left me in shock. Early Monday, a woman entered with her own key. The man hugged her tightly, and they kissed passionately before going to bed. I saved that video. On Tuesday, he met briefly with a cleaner, and later that day, another cleaner stopped by, and he paid her for certain favors. I saved those videos too. It was time to see George. I made extra copies for him. George picked me up, and we spent about 2 hours reviewing everything I'd found. Then we went to a bar. It was around 1 a.m. when we left, but I don't remember much after that. On Thursday, I woke up around 9 a.m. The house was empty. There was no sign of Marge or the kids. A note on the table read, "After last night, I didn't want to wake you," written with ironic undertones, clearly annoyed. Great, I thought. It would be easier to keep my distance. I called work and said I was sick, then headed to the motel to collect the videos from Thursday and today. Mary wasn't at the bar, but I had a drink while waiting for the data. Back home, I started transferring the files and used the testing kit on Marge's underwear. It tested positive. But that changed nothing. I had time to review the new videos, and once again, I was stunned. In the first video, a young woman in a military uniform entered his room. She looked about 20 or 21, petite. They shared some wine, and he initiated more intimate contact, touching her as they kissed and embraced. She began to undress but quickly hesitated, saying she didn't want things to go further. She tried to leave, but he held her back, turning aggressive. She resisted, struggling to get away, but he forced her to stay. I couldn't watch any more. I closed the file and ran to the bathroom to throw up. When I felt a little better, I made a copy for George. I opened another file. This time, Mary entered, and he paid her before they were together. She had told me she was a sex worker, but it was still strange to see it. 2 other videos caught my attention, both new from today. In one, he called Marge, asking her to come over. She laughed but agreed. In the last video, Marge arrived, they kissed, and she did things before leaving as if nothing had happened. I saved those for George as well. I called George and told him we needed to meet urgently. He suggested coming to my house, but it was too risky. We met at his workplace, and I quickly handed him the USB drive. The first file is the worst. "I'm sorry, but you need to see it," I said, then went to wait in my car. After a long while, George came out and joined me. "I'm going to find out who that girl is, and Perez will regret this," George said. He added, "Let's go. Not for drinks, but to get answers from Mary." Mary was at the bar but not working. When she saw us, she signaled to the bartender to bring us 2 gin and tonics. Once they were set on the table, Mary hugged George, shook my hand, and said, "Hey, guys, always good to see you." "Hi, Mary." "Good to see you," I replied. George looked at her seriously and asked, "Mary, what's going on?" Her face fell, and she said, "George, you guessed it again. I've caught something from that job, and that's why I can't work at the bar. I'm sick and don't want to infect anyone else. I'm done. I've stopped selling myself, and I'm quitting school. I'll just survive without nursing or anything else." George's expression turned fierce as he grabbed her arm. "No, you're not done. You dreamed of becoming a nurse that day in jail, and you've worked for it every day since. I'm glad you stopped selling yourself, but I'm not letting you give up your dream," he said. I added, "Mary, we'll find another way." She looked at us with tears in her eyes. "I couldn't ask for better friends, but I can't and won't ask for help." "It wouldn't be right," she said. George and I exchanged a glance, and I said, "That's fine. You're not asking, and you can't stop us." We all laughed softly, and then I brought up a new topic. "George," I asked, "are there any openings at the base?" Before he could answer, Mary's face turned serious. "Guys, there are 2 things you need to know. First, I know you've been watching Will Perez. I can see his room's door from the front windows of the bar, and I hope he gets caught soon." George nodded with a grim look. The first thing I did after finding out I was infected by him was to make sure he got it too, she said, making my jaw drop. Why? I asked. She looked at me sternly. Because I wanted him to suffer, she said with a dark voice. Mary, what did he do to you? George asked. Nothing to me, but he hurt a young woman. Not just any girl. I saw her leave his room barely able to walk. She was stumbling when I arrived for work, struggling to stand. I tried to help her. She was crying, her face bruised and red, and her dress torn. She only let me walk her to her car before she left, Mary explained. Mary then told George that the woman was probably around 20 years old and wearing a uniform that indicated she was in the Air National Guard. One of yours, Mary said. I know, George replied. I'll find her and make sure she gets help, and he'll pay for this, he added. He seemed to think I had some hidden plan and asked if we could talk. I went to bed close to midnight. Marge was already asleep, and now George knew everything I was thinking. He also wanted to see if Mary could work at the base, as there would soon be job openings. Saturday was quiet. Marge and I barely spoke. We watched a movie as usual, but when I came back with drinks, Marge was sitting in the middle of the couch with Tommy and Julia on either side. Usually, Marge and I sat together with the kids next to us. I took a seat in a chair, watching as Tom and Julia seemed confused while Marge looked pleased with herself. Marge went to bed early. I used the time to review the voice recordings but found nothing significant. I received an email from Perez saying, "Thanks for Friday. I can't wait for next Wednesday." We didn't talk much on Sunday. We acted like everything was normal. I went to bed a bit before Marge and noticed she still changed in the bathroom. She had to know her lies were hurting me in silence. When she turned her back to me, it was fine, I could keep my distance. On Monday, George called and said they had found the young woman who had been assaulted. She ended up in a local hospital and, after some conversation, was ready to testify against Perez. He also said they planned to raid the place the following Monday morning. I hoped to avoid Marge that week so I wouldn't jeopardize anything with Perez. I agreed and told George I'd tell Marge I was going out of town from Wednesday to Sunday. In reality, I planned to book a room at the motel and carry out my plan. I called Kevin, the motel manager, and reserved the room directly above Perez's for 5 days. At dinner on Monday, I told Marge and the kids about my supposed work trip from Wednesday to Sunday. Julia and Tom were disappointed, but Marge didn't show much emotion. On Tuesday, Marge and I barely spoke. After everyone went to bed, I packed and put my bag in the car. I checked the voice recorder, and one conversation caught my attention. It was Marge talking to Ashley that morning. "Ashley, this idiot is ruining everything. Whether it's Will or David," Marge said. Ashley sounded confused. "David?" she asked. "We've been distant. We haven't talked in days. Last night, he said he's leaving Wednesday morning and won't be back until Sunday. So, I won't get to have fun with both on the same day," Marge said. "Marge, you need to sort things out with your husband before dreaming about anything big." "This is going too far," Ashley replied. "Yeah," Marge sighed. "If only David would stop being so difficult, I'd make him happy. I don't understand why he makes it so hard." Great, so she's cheating, and I'm the difficult one, I thought, but I saved the file anyway. I left for work early on Wednesday but stepped out at noon to check in at the motel. I brought my video equipment from the car and set it up with 2 laptops in the room, allowing me to watch the live feed and use the internet simultaneously. Then I waited. Around 1 p.m., I saw Marge arrive and walk to her room from the window. She had her laptop with her and started a live stream. I watched as she hugged and kissed Perez. "I need to check my emails first," she said and turned on her laptop, connecting to the motel's Wi-Fi. They both worked on their computers for about 10 minutes. As soon as she said she was done, he lifted her and carried her to the bed. "I need to be with you, sweetheart," he said. She pulled him close for a kiss and replied, "And I need you too." I turned the volume down and remotely accessed Perez's computer, then Marge's from his. While they undressed, I got to work. They were together, rough and intense, for almost 2 hours before falling asleep in each other's arms. They woke up around 5 p.m., giving me about 4 hours to search their computers. When they began to stir, I disconnected but kept watching. She was the first to wake, looked around, saw the clock, and then gently pushed him to wake up. "Will, wake up, sweetheart. We fell asleep," she said. He groaned as he woke and leaned back again. "What time is it?" he asked. "Past 5. "I have to go," she replied. "Me too," he said. "I promised my wife dinner out." She gave him a light slap. "Hey, I don't want to hear about that. I already hear too much about your wife and kids." "Don't forget that," she said as she stood up. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I shouldn't have mentioned it," he said, also getting up. "You know I love my life, but sometimes I get jealous thinking of you with your husband." "I know, darling. What we're doing is hard for both of us," she said. "I'm glad you haven't been with your husband lately. I like to think your body is just for me. It's not yours, I choose to share it with you. But I love my husband, and I need to fix things with him. I've been ignoring him for weeks. I love being with you, please understand that it makes me feel so good, but I can't ruin my marriage," she said. He pulled away and said, Hey, I can't let my wife find out either." As he stood up, he added, "God, my shoulders hurt." She looked surprised. "Will, I'm sorry. I scratched you, didn't I?" "Really, I'm so sorry," she said. He went to check the scratches in the mirror. "Wow, you really did a number on me," he said. "I'm so sorry," she said, starting to cry as she stood up and then winced in pain. "Ow, I'm sorry. I'm really sore." "You said you'd be gentle," she added. They had a brief argument while dressing, both remaining silent as they headed to the door. He paused for a deep kiss, saying, "I really do love you, sweetheart, but we have to be careful." They left quietly, not holding hands. I watched her walk to her car and drive away. I stayed in the room, knowing she wouldn't be back for a while. My first goal was accomplished. Now came the hard part, waiting until the following Monday. Until then, I could continue digging through their computers. On Thursday, Marge called the hotel manager to book the same room for the next Wednesday at 1 p.m., then left for work. On Friday, I kept my distance from the house. Before leaving, I told Marge I'd be away until Sunday. She gave me a kiss and said, "I can't wait for you to come back." The kids hugged me too. I arrived at the hotel, hoping to find more useful information. I spent Saturday going through emails, messages, and phone calls, searching for any new clues. I found nothing significant, just a few chats between Marge and Ashley. Sunday was the same. I left Sunday night, hoping everything would go smoothly on Monday. Monday morning, I woke up early, made breakfast, and told Marge I'd be back home later. She gave me a quick kiss and left for work. I called George to confirm that we needed everything ready. He agreed, and we got to work. I was with George in his office when he received a call. The raid would happen in 30 minutes. We watched as soldiers stormed Perez's place and caught him red-handed in his office. They found forged documents and boxes of products ready for shipment. They also uncovered evidence of him bribing the person feeding him information about other vendors. Perez was arrested, and the story made the news. The military police coordinated with local law enforcement and the FBI to ensure the operation went smoothly. Perez's office was a hub of illegal activity. They seized computers that revealed a trove of incriminating emails, financial records, and communications with his accomplices. The raid extended to the motel room, where hidden cameras and microphones provided irrefutable evidence of his illicit meetings and bribery transactions. The consequences of Perez's arrest were immediate and severe. The media covered the story extensively, detailing his fraudulent activities and the corruption that had infiltrated the Air National Guard base. His arrest shook the community, leading to several internal investigations and a thorough review of procurement processes to prevent future abuses. As Perez's case unfolded in court, more details about his crimes emerged. Witnesses, including the young woman he had assaulted, testified against him. The evidence was overwhelming, and the jury quickly convicted him on multiple counts of fraud, bribery, and assault. Perez was sentenced to 20 years in a federal prison without the possibility of parole. His name became synonymous with corruption, and he was stripped of all honors and titles associated with his career. Meanwhile, I had to confront Marge about everything that had happened. When she came home, I was waiting for her in the living room. She looked surprised to see me there so early. "David, what's going on?" she asked, sensing the tension in the air. "Sit down, Marge. We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She sat down slowly, her eyes full of confusion and fear. "What is it?" she asked. "I know about Perez." "I know everything," I said, looking directly into her eyes. Her face turned pale, and she seemed to shrink into her seat. "David, I've seen the videos. I've read the emails. I've listened to the phone calls. There's nothing you can say to change what you've done," I interrupted, my voice trembling with anger and pain. Marge broke down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, David. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I was just so lost and confused. Please, you have to believe me," she pleaded. I took a deep breath, struggling to hold back my own tears. "Marge, it's too late for apologies. You broke our trust, and there's no going back. I want a divorce." She sobbed harder, burying her face in her hands. "Please, don't do this. We can get through this. I can change," she begged. But I had made up my mind. "It's over, Marge. I can't live like this. We need to think about the kids and what's best for them. We need to move on." After watching the videos of Marge with Perez, I decided to send the evidence, including her clothing, to a clinic for analysis. The results were shocking. The clinic found DNA from 5 different men, and Marge had contracted a sexually transmitted disease, STD. When I informed Marge about this, she was devastated. She went to the clinic and spent a fortune on treatment. I also got tested, and fortunately, I did not contract any STDs. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal procedures and emotional turmoil. We agreed on shared custody of Julia and Tom, ensuring they spent equal time with both of us. We sold our house, splitting the proceeds fairly, and divided our savings and possessions equitably. Marge moved into a small apartment nearby, while I found a new home for the kids and myself. The divorce process was painful and drawn out. We had to attend mediation sessions to settle the custody arrangement and the division of assets. Marge agreed to attend therapy, and I did the same, hoping to cope with the emotional aftermath. Both of us wanted what was best for Julia and Tom, but the path ahead was anything but easy. Julia and Tom were understandably devastated by the news. We sat down with them and explained what was happening, assuring them that we both loved them and that none of this was their fault. They were in shock and hurting, but we promised to make the transition as smooth as possible. Marge struggled with guilt and remorse. She focused on repairing her relationship with the kids, attending therapy to work on her issues, and rebuilding her life. We maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of the children, attending school events together and making sure they felt supported by both parents. Life after the divorce was challenging but also brought new opportunities. I took time off work to focus on my mental health and be there for Julia and Tom. We started new traditions and spent more time together, creating positive memories to counter the pain of the past. I reconnected with old friends and slowly opened myself up to the idea of dating again, cautiously at first but with growing optimism for the future. George remained a steadfast friend, offering support and encouragement. His relationship with Mary grew stronger, and they became an important part of my support network. Mary thrived in her nursing program, finding a new sense of purpose and direction in her life. With George's help, she secured a job at the base, which provided her with stability and a sense of belonging. One evening, about a month after Marge moved out, I sat down with Julia and Tom for an honest conversation. "I know things have been hard," I began, looking at my kids. "But we have each other, and we can get through this together." Julia nodded, her eyes full of determination. "We will, Dad. We'll be okay." Tom looked up from his game, a rare show of vulnerability in his eyes. "Yeah, Dad. We're a team." I smiled, feeling a surge of pride and love for my children. "That's right. We're a team." Over time, I found a new rhythm in my life. I focused on my work and being the best father I could be. I even started dating again, cautiously at first but with a growing sense of optimism about the future. The support of friends like George and Mary made a big difference, helping me heal and move forward. Marge continued working on herself and her relationship with the kids. She found a job that allowed her to have a flexible schedule, ensuring she could be present for Julia and Tom. Our interactions became less tense, and we both made an effort to be good co-parents. The epilogue of my life was a testament to resilience and the power of new beginnings. The betrayal had wounded me deeply, but it also paved the way for personal growth and a stronger relationship with my children. We faced challenges together and emerged stronger. As the seasons changed, so did I. I learned to let go of the past and look forward with hope. The end of my marriage was not the end of my story, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with growth, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Julia and Tom continued to thrive, excelling in their studies and finding their own paths in life. Marge and I found a way to coexist peacefully, ensuring that our children's well-being remained the priority. In the end, Perez's downfall served as a stark reminder of the consequences of greed and betrayal. His actions had far-reaching impacts, but justice was served. My journey, though painful, led me to a place of healing and renewal. With the support of friends and family, I rebuilt my life, ready to embrace whatever the future held.